All right, let's welcome our next guest, Metta World Peace. Metta World Peace, formerly known as Ronald Artest Jr., is a retired professional basketball player, entrepreneur, and a mental health advocate. Over his 19-year NBA career, he played for 6 teams, winning a championship with the Los Angeles Lakers in 2010 and earning the NBA's Defensive Player of the Year award in 2004. He also received the J. Walter Kennedy Citizenship Award for his community service. Beyond basketball, he co-founded X vs. X Sports and runs our test management group. His memoir, No Malice, My Life in Basketball, was published in 2018, followed by a Showtime documentary in 2019. A strong advocate for mental health, he raised over $650,000 for related charities through the auction of his championship ring. Join me in welcoming Metta World Peace. I've been waiting for this one for a while. I hear your name a lot. You were very active, Metta.
Yeah, thanks for having me. Sherrod, thanks for inviting me on for a couple of years, and thanks for having me here at Mission Matters. But yeah, just moving with purpose. You move with purpose, and sometimes you don't know where it's going to lead you, but you know you have a goal. You don't know who you're going to meet along that journey. You don't know what's going to happen, but you know you have a goal in mind. And it's led me, I just kind of switched tracks, and, I'm the train, and the world is our oyster, but it's also our track. And if it fits, guides me in the right direction to meet people like yourself, and you hear my name, then so be it. I'm going to embrace it.
Question I had in my mind, very, very few people experience this. What is it like to win an NBA championship?
It was fun,
Just fun? What? Like, come on.
15 years ago, 2000.
What is it like?
25. This is 25. And that was 2010, so that was a long time ago. But yeah, it was definitely fun. Like, I always wanted to win a title. And you just never know when it's gonna happen. And it happened 10 years into my career. And you don't really feel it until it says 0-0 on the clock. And then that's when, for me, that's when it started to really sink in. One of the greatest days of my life. Because it was something I wanted to do since a child. Well, not since a teen. I wanted to win a title. Yeah, one of the greatest days of my life.
That concept of being a champion, whether it's in the NBA like yourself or in business or whatever somebody's venture is, like, thoughts on what it is to become a champion and what it takes?
I think basketball is something I've been doing since 8, wasn't that good, got better every year. Then I had a skill set, they draft me, I improved with the former NBA player coaches. And, I am who I am. I was a go-to guy before I got with Kobe. I was a go-to guy for the majority of my career. I was expert at what I did, right? And then in business, it don't always work like that. You'll see a lot of athletes get involved during their career in different businesses, and if you don't have the right mentorship, or if you don't have the right mindset for business, you can make mistakes. I don't think any athlete's gonna go into it saying, I got $100 million and I wanna just I really want to lose this in 10 years. I want to invest in this project, and I really hope I lose it all. I don't think they go into it like that. I think they go into it wanting to 10x it, but we're not turning over all the stones, rushing, and not having a background in business. So from that perspective, how do you reset? How do you take your losses, but then get back on track? And how do you have the grit? And I think for me, I always started late. So I understand that about myself, and I understand the long game. So my journey has been one of, at some point, we're going to win a championship again.
Looking at, when I say I hear your name often, not just in the news, not just in media, like you had a release that came out a couple of days ago, and I'll talk about that a little bit for FanUp, so we'll get into that in a moment, but in general, like I was talking to, for example, Kathleen Tepley the other day, and I'm like, Kathleen, we have Metta coming out. She's like, what? And the love, like I talk to a lot of people. You get a lot of love from behind, like a lot of the individuals there. Like your name comes up, but it's always for good things. You're supporting people. You're supporting people when you don't even need to. Like it's something that's coming from your heart. I don't know where it's coming from. What drives that? Like for you to show up?
Well, initially it was philanthropy. I was doing a lot of philanthropy. And I never had an interest in business. I didn't have an interest in meeting people in business. I just had an interest in playing basketball, partying in Los Angeles hard, and philanthropy, and that's what I did. But philanthropy, and only focus on philanthropy and saying yes to every single thing, that became overwhelming. Yeah. And so I wanted to figure out another way. And so, I mean, that was the journey. That was the journey. But I think because I've been helped getting scholarship to high school, when I didn't know what school I was going to go to, then to college, and even government assistance. It was times when we didn't have no food, and you get, that no frills cornflake, or that no frills butter, or that no frills cheese that turned hard if you leave it, out the refrigerator for 2 hours.
If you're not laughing, then you don't know. It's okay.
Yeah,
it's fine.
okay.
I'm laughing.
But it was good when you ate it, right? Cornmeal. But that's all like assistance, So it's like I've been assisted. It was times where, when your stomach is rumbling, people make bad decisions when they get hungry. And they don't even understand why they made that decision until they're like in jail. And all they was just hungry. Or you get cranky, you argue, people get divorced because they're hungry. Like they just argue, get a big fight, and they didn't eat breakfast. Angry. And it's like, I remember the times where people helped me, and I want to do the same thing. I want to be there, but it could be a point in time where it's overwhelming and it's a little too much at times.
So speaking of advocacy and your philanthropy, mental health, that's been something that you've supported for a long time. Where did that come from, and where do you see that current state of mental health advocacy at?
Well, for me, it was more about I had the ability to pay for therapists, and I was like, well, how can people pay for this? Not everybody can pay for someone to fly from Pennsylvania to Sacramento for marriage counseling and parenting counseling, at the price that we were paying for it. I'm just like, wow, so if this is helping me and other people need this, well, that's not gonna work. So that made me want to talk about my story in this format in 2007, actually, a long time ago. And then hopefully that could relate to someone, and that's your therapy. You just watch, and hopefully you got something from that. It was a company a school, Chicago University. They actually had a program where their their therapist students would charge $15 an hour, for a session, which is great because some people don't have, insurance and different things like that. So, and now you see since 2010, after I thanked my psychologist on national television, all pro sports teams, especially in the NBA, they have therapists on hand. They didn't have that prior to that.
Jumping around a bit here, our test management group, maybe tell us a little bit more about the company and your vision for it.
2015, we launched our test management group. I started to get an interest in business, real business, in 2009. 2012, I took a liking to all the new Facebook ads, the Shopify's that was coming out. Then I thought that I could launch a tech company on my own, and tried. And then in 2015, I was looking at, my strengths, and it was working with others, and I was asking myself these questions. So I launched a C Corp, our test management group, just based off information I received. I launched it at a 10 mil valuation with, no assets. And then, I couldn't justify it, but I said, I think it's worth 10 million. But I said, one day it will be worth 10 million. And when I did it, I just wanted to get started, just get into the game. Get into the game, miss some shots. It is what it is. And I figured I'll learn along the way. And at some point, I will fill up that empty valuation glass with real substance. And that's what I did. And I created a thesis 6 years after I launched the company, and this is 10 years later, and it's turned into returning into a private equity firm now because of the assets that we have, trying to make it into a product. But along that journey, it was a lot of ups and downs. There was times I wanted to quit, and I just said, don't quit, don't get tired, and now I learned a lot of lessons, and I'm grateful for them. I'm really grateful for them, and now we got that second win, and it's exciting.
So what kind of projects, founders, industries, give a little bit of the complexion of maybe the thesis for our test management group.
Well, initially we didn't have a thesis.
Yep. Now, present
We
day.
have a thesis. So the thesis that we set 4 years ago or 5 years ago was areas where sports affect the outcome of success, because I just needed to move forward, and I was just trying to find ways to align and trim fat and not try to get involved in everything, every opportunity. So that helped me find better companies and better founders, and I couldn't really identify a founder back then. I didn't know that you had to actually identify the founder, not just the idea. You get excited, oh, that's a great idea, but you can't really operate that idea. So I fell into that a lot. Now I'm better, I got a better team. The former CEO, Bruce Moe, was my CEO partner, and the team is incredible. A lot of great operators. So I wanted to create, along the way, I wanted the IPO. That was a goal, even though the IPO market wasn't great at one point in time, but I didn't want to focus on all that. I just wanted to focus on the steps. You could always not go public, right? So the assets that I wanted into the company was recurring assets, cash flowing assets, and for sports, I looked at logistics as something that we can use, athletes can use. When you look at consumer brands, everything, this whole room is filled with logistics. If you look at the materials, it's written all over the public markets, from the video to Amazon, to Fashion Nova, to Shin, to Nike. So I was like, I need a logistics asset that I own and that's catered to my DNA and what I'm doing. And that was about 5 years ago. So now we have 3 logistic companies. We're active. It's probably my fastest moving company or asset. I have a great CEO that we put in place. So I'm really, that just happened. Well, the concept hit me 5 years ago, 4 years ago, and now that's actually coming to life. So they're working on commercial deals. And then we have insurance is something that was always interesting to me for many reasons, because obviously Warren Buffett is inspiring. It's not me, but everyone. And when you look at his stock, you look at the NBA arenas, you see State Farm, you see Geico, then you see new insurance companies coming and all these new innovative insurance companies coming. And once again, how do I apply that to my ecosystem? How do I partner with people? And even just fast forwarding a little bit, as I had all these visions, how I wanted, the assets I wanted under my ticker symbol, which is private now, I didn't understand partnerships until really 3 years ago. I didn't even understand it 3 years ago. I just knew I needed to start creating partnerships and then start commercializing. How do you bring value to your portfolio companies? How do you bring value to your own companies? So I just keep asking myself these questions, and now my partnership game is better. Making the pie bigger versus trying to keep everything to yourself. And these are concepts that takes people a little bit longer. Sometimes it takes someone longer to get it. But if you're trying to perfect something, like for example, I didn't learn how to shoot with my left hand until I was 13 years old. And then that became a strength. I only went left when I was in the NBA. The scouting report was, don't let him go left. That was my strength. So it's the same thing in business, right? You just keep working at it. And just don't give up. And the same people that was like no years ago, they're talking to me now. And some I'm actually in business with.
Amazing. I read this the other day. So FanUp, a hub for Gen Z and female sports fans. I know our test management group is involved, but what can you tell us?
Yeah, FanUp is, so we wanted to launch a venture capital arm under our umbrella, and we did that. Some great partners. Steven Stokos, former CEO of Bruce Mobile, Allison Lamb, former BlackRock Carlyle, Tari Getty, former Navy SEAL, former Stanford. So I was able to build a team and then take the venture capital kind of model, take that pressure off of my firm. I didn't I wanted my firm to be a little bit different, more service-based firm, ecosystem-based. So we was able to create a new entity, and that's the entity that was we got involved in FanUp, we got involved in Barcode, which is like an airline and stuff. And that is a new fund. We deployed a little bit, but we're raising right now also. And yes, Steven Stokers is leading it, but FanUp is a great company. They're doing great, big revenue. You know, we got in late, but it's still a good company to be a part of.
All right, so this is the morning, so I got one more question, then I'm going to open it up to the audience, and everybody else gets to, we gotta have time for a couple of questions here. So one of the things that we do here is publishing books. So today we're celebrating a book launch, and we published over 400 authors. So whenever I have somebody on stage, I like to ask about their book, number one, but what's interesting to me and what I try to encourage people to do is you don't have to be, in this case, NBA champion. You don't have to be a celebrity. You don't have to be all these things. Like, everybody's story matters. So I'm curious about your thought process around your book and just storytelling in general, and why people should share.
I think, let's talk about more storytelling. I think storytelling is important. Coming to LA, everybody wants to do movies and write books and, you know, be a star or whatever. But I think for me, you know, I've done that. I think I've been colorful on interviews and created this personality. But I think storytelling is a way to tell stories. I was always able to put out good content using the platform of the NBA, but I wasn't able to create a story. My story was all over the place. One day I'm rapping, one day I'm doing acting, one day I'm on Big Brother, you know, one day I'm getting ejected. Like, who are you? You know, and I actually noticed that. I was like, wow, my fans are really confused, because when I got into digital marketing, I said, oh wow, my fans are really confused. So that led me to getting off Instagram, just hiding. I literally deleted my Instagram. And I said, I missed the boat on an opportunity for a brand. Like, Jordan's just Jordan. You know, I was everything. And you can't really market to your family that. So I said, okay, I'm gonna come back at some point and I'll be comfortable wherever I am. And now it's like doing things like this, which I'm okay with. You know, so I forget, what's the first part of your question?
It's just encouraging other people to tell their story, regardless of their status, or they may not be an NBA champion, or like, it's important.
And you can tell it different ways, and I'm just gonna start to tell mine via speaking engagements. You know, we also have a sports management vertical that we have agents and managers, and I'm gonna use my own. We're gonna create our own booking vertical, and they'll book me. And it's hard to manage me. So you can't manage me.
I've been told.
I need a management company. Yes, I tell people all the time. You can partner with me, but you can't manage me. It's impossible. So I had to create a company to actually manage me, because of my mind is all over the place. So we're doing that, and they get a chance to actually, when they're not working for me, I go and create revenue for your vertical, and they can create revenue for themselves. But when I need you, I need you. And so now we're going to start booking. I also don't want to do certain things. Like, I've turned down a lot of podcast opportunities. Yeah, I could have made good money, but I didn't want to necessarily do what they wanted me to do. I've turned down reality show opportunities. Yeah, I could have made good money, but I don't want to do that. So I had to create my own production company to set my own narrative, you know, create my own podcast company to create my own narrative. And I said, if it's going to take me 10 years, so be it. You know, and that's what we're doing right now. I got a great team. We're setting the narrative. And, you know, I want to speak in corporate. I want to speak at schools. I want to speak about entrepreneurship. I want to speak about, you know, family. And that's still entertaining. You can make it entertaining. I can do a dance right now. That's entertaining. No, I'm not going to do that.
I heard it, yeah.
But I'm saying you can still be entertaining without getting drunk on national TV, without having my wife have a drink just to entertain someone, or without having to smoke marijuana. I'm not saying, you know, I'm not against marijuana, but I don't necessarily want to show that on, you know, my podcast. I want to do something different. I'm for marijuana. A lot of people have been locked up, you know, for smoking a joint, you know, which is crazy. But, you know, from that perspective, now I'm able to tell my own story. You know, sometimes people would say, even documentaries, they do not encourage the person who's being featured to be an executive producer on the doc, but they'll do a doc without telling you, which is unbelievable. I can't believe you can do a doc on somebody without getting permission. But then even if people get permission, it's not what you want. You know, so I think controlling your story is important. I think everybody has a story. Maybe you don't have to be an NBA player to have a story.
All right, let's open it up for some questions. Who's got some questions?
I'll take it. Metta, you and I both sit at the board for the YMCA. So first of all, thank you for the work you do for us there. But my question is on XVX Sports. Can you talk about your vision for that and what it is for the people that don't know?
Yeah, X Sports is one of the first companies I raised for. LA Times invested in X Sports, a couple other great notables. Calvin is a shareholder, one of the first shareholders in X Sports. It was really to create community in Los Angeles. It was an educational tool. I wanted to teach people every level, players, to coach, how to general manage, how to operate, how to ref, and then to find great competition and develop and localize that pro experience. We had an issue with development, which I had to build my own dev shop. It took me 4 years to build it, but we have it, so I will not be having issues with development anymore. But yeah, so it was going well. We had a great community here in Los Angeles. And it was, sometimes you have a lot of talent, but you can't find the talent. The talent sometimes have to get a job. It's a lot, maybe at Starbucks or at, Target or something, and they're not able to display your skills. So on X Sports, we was giving you your time back as a player. So a lot of these players that had jobs, they was able to play with former pros and influencers. We had some players that couldn't leave our side. We was in case study mode, going around Los Angeles and playing games and coaching. I was actually coaching in the streets of Los Angeles. And the only way they can contact you is with Wi-Fi and Facebook. They had to be next to you. So as I was getting all this information, and we did X Sports, and now these same influencers that had nothing, one player made $100 grand winning a tournament. Another player started out with 2,500 Instagram followers on our platform, and now he has 1 million followers making money, and he's in the big three. His name is Hezzy God. Tristan Jazz started on our platform. White Iverson started on our platform. So many players in Los Angeles.
Incredibly competitive games.
And incredibly competitive games. Not like these. It was my rules. It wasn't these new rules. So it was real competitive in Los Angeles, and so we had to take a break. We took a break from it, but now we're bringing it back. And it started in the YMCA.
That's right.
We actually built it in the YMCA. A fun concept.
All right, please.
So Metta, being part of the first team that did the first nil deal, first to pay a college player in sports, and being that it was women's basketball over 4 years ago, and how big the game got right now in terms of where everything is, everybody knows Kate Clark, you can name all the names. What was your vision for that? Because I know you're a basketball lover and you understand like the roots of the game. What was that like having that vision for everybody?
Yeah, so in 2018, what Calvin is alluding to, in 2018 we launched X Sports, and I was actually also I had a wallet where the players would make money also. So we was able to drop cash into their wallet. This is before, I didn't even know about Web3 or NFTs at this point, or wallets. And then when I found out about the wallet, I'm like, oh wow, I'm already doing this. Unfortunately the app wasn't working, but, and we were also 50-50 with men and women. So the men games got more attention. Even though the women's game wasn't getting a lot of attention, we gave it attention. And that was 2018, and a lot of our female influences, you'll see them this day. You'll see them out there doing things with the NBA and stuff. And so we were really early to the game with even our head of sports being a female. And we were really early to the game, being the first partnership with my partner, Steven Stokos. We were the first nil contract with the Cavender twins. So we actually launched the first nil contract, but we were actually doing nil before nil. But I think, obviously, when you get a bunch of really smart people in one room, they'll take it to the next level, and such as they did. Look at college basketball, it's incredible. So yeah, I think it was just, I felt like women weren't, they didn't have the equal opportunities, which is why our sports program focused on women. we used to have to kick the guys off the court because the women would be playing, and they would just be like shooting on the other side while the women are playing, and we would literally have to get off the floor. Just, you know. So we set a culture, a great culture at Experts at Sports, and we're going to bring it back. And I'm coaching women's basketball to this day. I coach Cal State LA as a volunteer coach, Division II women. And I'm going to be coaching women's next year, and I love coaching women's basketball. I like coaching guys too, you know. But you know, right now I've been involved behind the scenes. Hopefully, it'll get some recognition at some point.
All the way. Oh, start here, and then I'll go in back next.
Hi, Brandy Beal. I think I know Ashi.
Oh yeah.
Yeah.
Of course.
We were in Miami together. I'm in the decentralized space, and we think it's very important for you to own your identity. And so I wanted to ask you, did you go back into tokens? Did you go back into wallets? Are you distributing into your organizations with that mentality of where we're headed?
Yes, yes and no. Yes, no meaning I'm not trying to be CEO of everything anymore because, yeah, it's too hard. But in terms of yes, meaning like my firm, yes, we're the right partnerships, decentralization, identification, and so we're building our portfolio companies up so the ecosystem can work together. You know, from layer ones to layer twos, case study. We feel our utility. We do have great utility, so we're primed to launch a layer one or layer two. We're actually figuring out how and when we're going to do that. Our wallet will have blockchain involved. We have a technology that I think is really great right now. It's called Apotheca, actually, apotheca.com. That's the technology we're using, and it can apply it to healthcare, fintech, and then also any other case studies. So, but yeah, we're definitely paying attention and waiting for the right opportunity to continue to get involved. And my firm is doing a lot of business development for the founder, but yeah, definitely paying attention to that.
All right, last question over in the back. Yep, there you go.
Yeah. So my question is around youth sports and its ability to transform America or the world, really, because I think youth sports are a great place for kids to learn and build self-esteem. I think there's a focus on winning over teaching, like, team and, you know, because 99% of kids are never going to play past maybe high school, right? So my question is, how do we change the mindset around coaching across the country to change America? Because I think it's like more, children learn more from sports than almost anything, right? It's such a huge focus for parents to coach your kids and get them involved in these different activities. However, it's like when I have two boys, they're 23 and 21. When they were younger, I coached 15 teams. I saw most of the parents wanting just to focus on winning, which is great. But how do we change the mindset? Because this is a tool we have for our kids, right? This is like one of the greatest ways to transform our country, right? Because everyone wants to play sports. But how do we get the mind shift? How do we get the mind shift? You know, it's a big question. So
it's a good question, actually. Before I answer that question, I want to acknowledge the people that I know in the audience. Juliet Gordy, she has a great company that we are advising. Say might be, no might, sorry. We are going to be advising. And then Calvin was a shareholder at Experts Sports. Flo, good to see you. Darren, some people I know, like really cool to see people I know. So I just wanted to say hello. Esther, I knew Esther, like all these people I know is in the building. But I think American sports, it's, especially basketball, I don't like where it's going. You know, look how much people are traveling in the NBA. I mean, if you watch basketball, I don't understand it. We're also setting up our players, so from a pro perspective and an amateur perspective, let's talk about both. You know, we're also setting up our country to not be the best in basketball. You know, you have the other overseas countries, they can play pro at 13, pro at 15. We gotta wait, and now we can't compete. You know, America spends so much time fighting against each other here, and it's trickling down to sports now. You know, it's trickling down to sports, and it's just, you know, we need to figure this out, and in terms of winning and losing, like, it's okay to lose. So you shouldn't be giving people wins. youth parents, no, your kid lost, it's okay. And then they get it back. My kids, I wanted them to go to St. John's, but they said no. They wanted them to go to my alma mater, it was a no. I wanted them to go to NBA, it was a no. I felt bad, but it's a no. And I think they build character, they figure something else out. Youth sports, it is a lot of sports, people are getting hurt. I think the kids could use a break. It's times, get better, your skill sets. There are a few, parents that are really doing it the right way, but, American sports, we got to figure it out. I think there's a lot of gatekeeping, so there's a lot of professionals that have the skill set to help us not get any opportunities in high school level, private school level, college level, pro level. So I think it's also an opportunity to be a part of the change in sports. Everybody wants to own a team. Everybody wants to go the same route. But then there are companies going different routes. You can look online and you'll see a lot of different sports companies, and just be the change. Whether it's youth, build. I think have the confidence to be the change, if that's something. But I love sports. I love basketball. I'm from New York City. I get passionate about the city of New York. It's not producing players at the rate that we used to produce the players. And once again, you look at the NBA. I love foreign countries. But I'm just saying, here in America, I'm competitive. I love American basketball. And I don't want to see the USA versus the world in an all-star game because I don't want to lose. So I'd rather them just keep it as it is now. But we got to, change the mindset a little bit in sports. And I think we should let our teams play up if we can, because we got to at some point catch back up. Because right now we are on the downslide.
All right, let's give it up.